So this video is for the 2008 PAT, Unit A, which is questions 1 to 10, and response number 1. Okay, so this question we have an advantage of asexual reproduction. So this means you're not going to have a combination of gametes. Okay, so leading to greater variation? No, you need sexual reproduction to get variation. Allows offspring to adapt? No. Okay, they can't adapt without variation. Okay, and you can only get variation through sexual reproduction. Leads to long-term bonds between offspring and parent? No, has nothing to do with it, right? Lets a population grow substantially over a short period of time? Yes. Okay, like cuttings, you can reproduce a whole bunch of plants from the different stems of other ones. For runners, for strawberries, okay, those, D would be the right answer there. Okay, for number 2, it's asking where fertilization takes place. Okay, so our process here, from adult cells to sex cells, is meiosis. Meiosis, yeah. Okay, and that produces our gametes or sex cells, like sperm and egg. Those unite to form a zygote. Okay, so this would be fertilization, which is the answer, so 2. Okay, and then our zygote is going to continue to make more cells to get an embryo, and then we're going to have more cells again to make an adult. Okay, so these would both be mitosis. Okay, I hope you're enjoying some lovely band music in the background. So what we have going on here is we have wolves that eat elk that eat plants, willow plants provide shade. So drawing a little picture sometimes helps. Okay, here's your plant, willow, pretend that's a tree. Okay, and it says that our fish need cold water. So we need to assume that this willow is shading our fish. Okay, so if we have elk, they're going to eat this, and that'll be gone, so no shade for the fish. Okay, so what's going on here? Which of the following changes is most likely going to happen if you decrease the amount of wolves? See how I'm highlighting and circling things? Okay, so if you have less wolves, you're going to have more elk. We're going to eat the trees, so you're going to have less trees. What's it called? Willow. And that means there's going to be less shade. And bull trout, it's a kind of fish, like cold water. So you're going to have less fish as well. Okay, so what's going to happen? Less elk? No, you're going to have more elk because the wolves aren't eating them. Okay, so not that one. Increase the plants? No, because now you have more elk eating the trees. More predators of wolves? That just doesn't make sense. Okay, and decreased number of trout because the elk ate all the trees, which shade the plant, or shade the river, okay, the stream, so there's less fish. Okay, kind of a convoluted question there, but that's not that one. This question has to do with niches, so it's saying which species has the broadest niche. Okay, so that's like predator-prey, that's like what they can eat. Okay, like what's their chance of survival? They're going to be better able to survive if they're omnivores, scavengers, that kind of thing. Okay, because they are able to find food. Okay, if you're a producer and there's a forest fire, right, it takes a longer time to come back than others. Okay, so taking a look at this graph here, we have species W, which is the long dashed lines, who actually did better after the forest fire. So that might be something like the pine cone trees, like lodgepole pine, that can't compete against other tree species. Then after the forest fire, their cones are released, and they're actually better able to survive. Species X is this squiggly line here. And it looks like after they were doing okay, and then after the forest fire, they died for a little while, but they were able to recover quite quickly. This species Y is this dotted squiggle, so it looks like they were doing okay, and then they died, and it took them longer to recover. Okay, so probably not that one. And probably not this one, because it wasn't able to survive well at the beginning. Let's look at Z. So this one was doing great at first, but then died and couldn't recover. Okay, so not those guys. So X, which was the species that came back, survived fine before, and came back the fastest, would be the best survivor. Okay, which of the following traits, human specifically, is influenced by the environment? Okay, so it's not genetic. The rest are all genetic things. So your genetic, what's your blood type? Okay, you're born either colorblind or not colorblind. You're born with the ability to either roll your tongue or not, but your mass can change, right? If you diet or you exercise, you can change your mass. So you might be genetically predisposed to either have a larger or lower mass, but you can change it a bit. Okay, so that's the environment. This one has to do with rabbits in Alberta, okay, and a different kind of rabbit in Alberta. So this is specifically snowshoe hare, this is white-tailed jackrabbit. Okay, so this is where they do live, and this is where they don't live, and this is where these guys live, and where they don't live. Okay, so these guys like the south, and these guys like the north, and there's more of these, and less of these, if we compare them. Okay, now let's see what the question is. And it's always a good idea to read the question first, and then look at the information. Okay, so according to the information above, something about white-tailed jackrabbits and their niche, and something about snowshoe hare. Okay, so this is a fill in the blank where you have to pick which one of these words goes here and which one of these words goes here. Okay, so when I'm looking at these, broad versus narrow. So a broad niche is good. That means you can eat lots of things, you can live in lots of different habitats. Narrow niche is bad. Okay, that means you can only live in very specific habitats, like a polar bear. Okay, if it's too warm, they can't survive. The ice melts and they can't catch the seals. Panda bears. Okay, they only eat bamboo. So if there's no bamboo, they go extinct. Okay, so broad niche is better. So let's take a look. The white-tailed jackrabbit has a broader niche. No, the snowshoe hare has a broader niche than the snowshoe hare. So it's going to be one of these. Okay, and is a better example of a what species than snowshoe hare? Okay, so these guys are fussier than these. Okay, they only live here, whereas the snowshoe hares live in this whole area. Okay, so the jackrabbits are more of a specialist. So in terms of surviving, it would be better to be a broad niche and generalist. But compared to the snowshoe hare, the jackrabbit, it has a narrower niche and is more of a specialist than the snowshoe hare. Okay, so we'd go with D here. Number 7. They're expecting you to know that the area of the planet that has the most biological diversity is the rainforest, okay, which is Brazil, and this sort of area, Ecuador, okay, but I mean with deforestation that might not be the case anymore, right, but it's supposed to be in this area. Okay, so Canada, no. United States, no. Argentina, down here, no, even though again, that could be true. But around the equator is where there's supposed to be the most rainforests and the most biodiversity. So we go with Brazil. Okay, I took a look at this one ahead of time just to make sure I knew what I was doing. Okay, so this is about people who have brown hair and they have 3 kids. Okay, now normally when we do our science tic-tac-toe, our Punnett squares, we have 4 hypothetical children. Okay, but the point here is that we have brown hair and 1 kid has blonde hair. Okay, so they don't all have brown hair, so there must be some kind of hybrid or recessive gene going on here. Okay, so it's saying that the gene for brown hair is dominant to blonde, so blonde would be recessive in this case. Okay, so we're going to assume that to have blonde hair, you need 2 recessive alleles. Okay, and If you happen to do so many examples that you just know it off the top of your head, great. Okay, but it's always good to check. So I started with homozygous dominant and a heterozygous hybrid scenario to see what I'd get. Okay, so this and this makes homozygous dominant, dominant, hybrid, hybrid. So since they all have a capital letter, every single baby would be brown-haired. Okay, so that one is not right. Okay, taking a look at this one. Homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive. Every single baby would be heterozygous with the brown hair showing because there's a dominant gene there. So it can't be this one. Okay, and if it was just blonde with blonde, you wouldn't have any brown-haired babies. Okay, so it can't be that one. You need at least one dominant brown gene. Okay, so this and this is here. Okay, it's not that one. Definitely not this because there's no recessive gene at all to get the blonde baby. Okay, and it's always good to check. Try putting these two together. Right, so you'd have homozygous dominant here, heterozygous, another heterozygous, and our homozygous recessive. So this would be our blonde baby, and we have 3, or in this case 2. Okay, the other 2 kids have brown hair. Okay, so this would be the choice, which is B here. What part of a cell has the information about heritable traits? I'm looking at these thinking, oh, nucleus. Oh wait, nucleus isn't on the list. Cell wall, no, plant cell. Chloroplast, no, plant cell for photosynthesis. Cell membrane, everybody has that. But that's not specifically where the heritable traits, the DNA is. Okay, so it's in the nucleus, and in the nucleus we find chromosomes. Okay. This question says human cells normally have 46 chromosomes. Klinefelter syndrome is when you have an extra one of the gender chromosomes. You have X and a Y. Okay, so you end up with 47 total, right? We're supposed to have 46. Okay, and in the average population, right? These kind of modifications obviously do happen because it's a syndrome, so it's happens often enough that people have made a case for it. Okay, so typically we have 23 in the sperm and 23 in the egg, and those combine. Okay, so how we get the sperm and egg with different numbers is meiosis. Okay, artificial selection, no, because it's not relevant. Asexual reproduction, no, because this has to have sexual reproduction to get this different amount of chromosomes. And mitosis is just copying cells. Okay, so this is the correct answer here. Last one, numerical response. Discrete versus continuous variation. So this is either you are or you're not, or it is or it isn't. So it's a yes or no question. Okay, and continuous is where there's a range. Okay, so plant size, range, height, range. Okay, and I wouldn't be surprised if they changed this question because this question would mean boy or girl only, traditionally. Okay, but again, this is an old test, so you'd put 1, 2, 2 in this example, and that's it.